The sun was setting over the bustling airport in Atlanta. The warm orange glow cast long shadows on the terminal floor as Annabelle hurried through the crowd. She was dragging two oversized bags behind her, the wheels squeaking and catching on every bump in the pavement. What had started as an exciting trip to visit her sister had turned into a race against time. Her flight was in less than an hour, and she could feel the anxiety building in her chest. As she rushed past the restaurants and shops, her mind raced. Thoughts of missing her flight clouded her mind. She was a planner by nature, she had everything mapped out, but somehow here she was running late. She thought about her sister waiting for her at the other end, the excitement they had planned for this weekend. It pushed her to move faster. That's when she noticed him. A tall man with a warm smile, casually dressed in a faded blue t-shirt and jeans, stood by a nearby kiosk. He was watching her struggle with her luggage. In that instant, something about his presence felt reassuring. Annabelle was startled. She paused, unsure. She was always the independent one. Asking for help felt like admitting defeat, but something in his tone invited her to let down her guard. After a moment, she nodded, exhaling the breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Thank you," she said, her voice still shaky from the rush. He swiftly grabbed one of her bags, and together they moved toward the check-in counter. Awareness washed over Annabelle. He wasn't just any stranger. His kindness glinted like a beacon in the chaos surrounding her. They began to talk as they walked. His name was Jack, and he shared a bit about himself. He was a freelance writer, often finding inspiration in places like this airport. His enthusiasm was infectious, somehow lightening Annabelle's burden. He asked as they reached the check-in area. "Visiting my sister in California," she replied, a smile breaking through her stress. Jack nodded, grinning. "That sounds amazing." When they reached the front of the line, it was clear that Annabelle was cutting it close. The check-in staff confirmed her flight was on time, but warned her about security lines. As he set her bag down, Jack leaned in, his expression shifting slightly, filled with an understanding that reached deeper than polite conversation. "You can do this," he said, confidence rolling off him like a wave. "Just breathe." It was just a few words, but they wrapped around her heart like a lifeline. As they finished with the check-in, Annabelle snatched her boarding pass, heart racing. She turned to Jack, leaning on her last vestiges of calm. "I really appreciate your help." He waved his hand dismissively. "No problem at all." He smiled again, and in that moment, all of Annabelle's worries felt smaller. Before she could respond, he stepped back but then paused, reaching into his pocket. "Hey, if you have a moment, I'd love to get your contact info." Surprised yet flattered, Annabelle scribbled her number on the back of the boarding pass and handed it to him. They exchanged smiles, and just like that, they were two strangers connecting over the chaos of an airport. She squeezed through security lines, weaving past groups of travelers. Her heart raced not just from the adrenaline of the deadline, but also from the joy of unexpected kindness. Having met Jack felt like a sign, a little spark of magic in an ordinary day. Minutes later, after what felt like a lifetime, Annabelle arrived at her gate. She turned back, half expecting to see Jack waving goodbye, but he was already gone, swallowed by the crowd. She stood for a moment, the grin still on her face, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The flight was smooth, and she caught up with her sister, who welcomed her with open arms. They dove headfirst into adventures, reminiscing about their childhood, laughing over inside jokes, and even shedding a few tears over family stories. It felt good to be home. Annabelle seemed to float through the days, feeling a sense of pure happiness she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Yet there was one thing that lingered in the back of her mind, Jack. She found herself thinking about the stranger at the airport who had made such a small yet profound impact on her. Did he really mean it? Would she hear from him again? Days passed, filled with laughter and joy, but as her visit came to an end, that little voice nagging at her became louder. Her phone buzzed with messages, but none from Jack. Perhaps it was just a moment, she thought. Still, the little glimmer of hope wouldn't let her go. Back in Atlanta, at the same airport where their paths crossed, a sinking feeling weighed her down. As she walked through the terminal, she had hoped for a chance encounter, maybe just to see him again. Yet life trudged on, and she was swept back into reality. As she sat and waited for her flight, she pulled out her phone and scrolled through her messages. Nothing felt quite right. Suddenly her gaze fell upon a man standing by the window, staring out at the plains. It was Jack. Heart racing, she felt a rush of excitement as she stood up. Gathering her courage, she walked toward him. She called, he turned, and to her delight, his face lit up with recognition. He stepped toward her and they exchanged an embrace which felt completely natural, as if they'd known each other for years. She asked, her voice bubbling with surprise, "Just wrapping up some freelance?" "I had a feeling I might see you again," he said, a hint of mischief in his eyes. They spent the next hour talking about their lives, swapping stories, finding common ground. Jack opened up about his recent projects, and Annabelle shared details about her job, how she was finally pursuing her dream of being an artist. It felt as if they fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Then, almost as if by fate, Jack glanced to the side. "Oh, I need to run," he said, looking a bit pressured. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. "This is for a project I just finished. Can you take it to me after it's signed?" The moment felt strange, but Annabelle nodded. Jack smiled, said his goodbyes, and slipped away through the gate, leaving her standing there holding that check, a tangible link to the connection they had forged. As she turned and walked to her gate, the golden light of the airport enveloped her like a warm blanket. In that moment, the connection felt far deeper than just luggage and coincidental meetings. It was a reminder of how quickly things could change, how kindness could lead to profound moments that changed the course of a day or even a life. Weeks passed, and Annabelle found herself thinking about Jack more often than she expected. She had his number stored in her phone, a beacon of hope that she might reach out one day. Uncountable moments emerged in her mind, replaying their conversations. Each time she did, it was easier to believe that there was something unique about their connection. One afternoon, filled with coffee and quiet time, she decided to take the plunge and text him. The words came easily. "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thanks again for your help." Almost instantly, her heart raced as the 3 little dots appeared on the screen, indicating that he was typing. She could hardly breathe, anticipation blooming in her chest. "Hey Annabelle, so good to hear from you. I was hoping we could meet up again." The moment felt magical. They agreed to meet the very next week. When that day arrived, she felt a flurry of emotions: nervousness, excitement, and maybe even a little fear. Mostly it felt like adventure. As they sipped coffee in a quaint little cafe, it became clear that their connection was more than just a fleeting moment. They spoke of aspirations, dreams, family, and everything in between. Time slipped away, and before they knew it, hours had passed. In the back of her mind, she remembered that check. It felt like a drop in the ocean now, an important but distant part of their story. They ended the evening outside the cafe, faces aglow under streetlights, laughing freely. Jack asked, leaning against the wall, his voice thoughtful. Annabelle smiled, feeling that same warmth from the airport wash over her. All the time, that's when they both understood it was more than just serendipity. Their paths had crossed both for a purpose and as a beginning. From the moment Jack had helped her with her luggage to the way he later signed that check, it had been a journey leading them to something new. And so, as they said their goodbyes, there was a promise hanging between them of friendship, of potential, and perhaps something more. A connection that blossomed out of chaos, lingering like a beautiful thread woven into the very fabric of their lives. What started as just a fleeting moment in a busy airport had turned into something meaningful. All it took was a simple act of kindness, a shared conversation, and an understanding that sometimes letting someone help you can lead to extraordinary outcomes. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most surprising twist of all. The sound of squeaking wheels echoed through the crowded airport terminal, a mechanical symphony playing against the backdrop of hurried voices and announcements crackling overhead. There was a girl, Annabelle, her arms straining under the weight of 2 overstuffed bags. Sweat trickled down her brow as she navigated through a tide of travelers, her heart racing. She was running late, and each ticking minute felt like a drum beating against her chest. She muttered, glancing up at the giant board displaying the flight statuses. There it was, her flight to New York still listed as on time, but she could already feel the panic rising. She had plans, so many plans for this trip to see her sister. As she pushed forward, her mind flickered to the last time she had seen her sister years ago. They had so much to catch up on, and the thought of missing this flight made her stomach churn. Just as she rounded a corner, her bag snagged on the edge of a luggage cart, almost sending her sprawling. Flustered, she fought to regain balance and only succeeded in attracting attention. That's when he stepped in, a tall figure amidst the bustle, his expression caught between concern and amusement. The scruffy beard framed a kind smile, and he moved closer, eyes focused on her struggle. He asked, his voice warm like a summer breeze. Surprised, Annabelle paused, caught off guard by the kindness in his tone. She exclaimed, the words spilling out before she could reconsider. She, a fiercely independent woman, had always prided herself on doing things alone. But in this moment, with time slipping away, surrendering to help felt like a relief. With one swift motion, he lifted one of her bags, seemingly light as a feather in his grip. "I'm Jack," he said as they hurried toward the check-in desk. "Yes, I'm meeting my sister. It's been ages since I last saw her," Annabelle replied, feeling the tension in her chest release just a little. "Family is everything," he said, nodding. His words resonated with her, stirring something deep inside. She could see he was genuine, giving, and it made her feel unexpectedly calm. They reached the counter, and with a few quick keystrokes, the attendant processed her ticket. "You're cutting it pretty close," she warned. Annabelle shot back, grabbing her boarding pass. She was about to dash away when she turned back to Jack. He waved her off, an easy grin on his face. In that brief exchange, something sparked between them, a fleeting connection that neither could fully understand. As she sprinted toward security, she glanced back at him, still standing there, a reassuring figure in the chaos. After rushing through the lines, she barely made it to her gate just in time. As she collapsed into her seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that this day held more than just the promise of seeing her sister. Something about Jack lingered in her mind. As her flight soared through the clouds, memories of childhood laughter filled her thoughts. She hadn't realized how much she missed her sister until now. They had so much to share, stories from their separate lives, adventures that shaped who they were. When she finally landed, the excitement bubbled over as her sister rushed to embrace her. They spent hours talking, exploring the city as memories danced between them like fireflies. But in quiet moments, Annabelle found herself thinking about Jack. Who was he really? The thought tugged at her like an unfinished sentence waiting to be completed. Days went by, their visit filled with laughter, late-night chats, and shared meals. Yet the itch of curiosity about Jack wouldn't leave her. They hadn't exchanged numbers, so there'd be no way to reconnect. Each time she swiped through her photos, there he was smiling in her mind's eye, a friendly ghost from a fleeting encounter. On her way back to Atlanta, thoughts of what could have been echoed louder than the airplane's engines. She remembered how he made her feel lighter, more connected in that quick moment of their connection. And as she stepped off the plane, the weight of reality settled back over her. Weeks passed and life settled into its usual rhythm. Work consumed her, but every so often a fleeting thought of Jack would dance through her mind, a happy, mysterious flicker among the mundane. One night, while scrolling through some old messages, she hesitated, her fingers hovering over her phone. Should she just text him? It was a long shot, but the thought of letting that moment go without a trace felt wrong. I should just do it, she whispered to herself, confidence swelling. Quickly, she typed a short but heartfelt message and pressed send before she could second-guess herself. Nothing. Silence hung in the air like an unplayed note, stretching out her anticipation. Days turned into a week, and with each passing hour, disappointment crept in. A part of her wondered if he even remembered her. Maybe the moment they shared had meant nothing. Then came the day that turned everything upside down. Annabelle received a text notification while sipping coffee on her balcony. It was him, Jack. A jolt of adrenaline surged through her, warm and electrifying. Yes, she typed back as quickly as her fingers would allow. Wow, so glad you texted. I've thought about you a lot since that day. They exchanged messages like old friends catching up. The conversation flowed effortlessly, each message deepening the connection they felt. Hours later, a confident idea sparked in her mind. She sent, holding her breath as she sent it into the digital ether. Yes, as they planned their meeting, anticipation thrummed through her body like a piano string being plucked. When Saturday arrived, she dressed carefully, wanting to look effortless yet put together. The caffeine buzzed through her as she sat across from him, their eyes locking like magnets drawn together. Jack was exactly how she remembered, easygoing and genuine. They spent the next few hours sharing embarrassing stories, dreams, and aspirations. It felt as if they had known each other far longer than just a handful of encounters. Each laugh echoed, fueling an undeniable chemistry that neither of them could ignore. As they wrapped up their coffees, Annabelle glanced at her watch. Time had flown. She exclaimed, "I know, right? It feels like we could talk for hours," Jack replied, his eyes glinting with mischief. And then the moment came. Jack reached into his bag and pulled out an envelope. "I have something for you," he said with a teasing grin. Curiosity danced in her laugh as she opened it. She felt every emotion ripple through her, surprised and touched. "You didn't have to do this," but he shrugged, his smile endearing. "I meant it." That moment helped me remember the importance of connection. As the words sank in, Annabelle reflected on how those few moments changed everything. The chaos of the airport, their unexpected connection, and how kindness can carry profound weight. This wasn't just a simple act. It was a reminder that life is about these fleeting moments, the bonds created, and the warmth we share with each other, if only for a brief time. As they parted that day, Jack gave her a warm hug, a goodbye that felt more like an unfinished symphony ready to continue. In her heart, something had shifted between them, yes, but also within her. She realized just how powerful honest connection could be. Days turned into weeks, and their relationship blossomed into a friendship that felt like home. Lunches together became common, each one loaded with laughter and deeper conversations about their lives. Jack would share his writing while Annabelle would reveal her world of art. They were two pieces merging seamlessly, and it touched her in ways she had never anticipated. But sometimes the universe tests you. One evening, Annabelle returned home to an unexpected message from Jack. "I have some news," it began. Her heart sank. She quickly replied, trying to mask her despair. "Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations, but I don't want this to change what we have," he replied. His honesty hit her like a wave. Under the laughter and lightheartedness lay a gnawing fear of losing what they shared. Fate had shown its hand, and they both knew it now. Their connection was strong, yet here they were, standing at a crossroads, having to choose over distance or a bond. As the days ticked down to his departure, Annabelle found herself feeling torn. But she also realized that if life taught her anything, it was that every moment counted. So she pushed through her fears, determined to make memories that mattered, if even for a brief time before he left. They spent their last few days together exploring their city, each outing imbued with a bittersweet nostalgia. The morning he left, they stood at the airport, surrounded by strangers and luggage. Time felt suspended, as if the world around them had faded away. Annabelle asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Life goes on," Jack replied, an edge of vulnerability in his tone. They locked eyes, an unspoken promise hanging in the air. Let's not let distance define us, Annabelle said, her heart full despite the impending separation. With that, they shared one last lingering embrace filled with warmth and a sense of hope. As he walked away, she felt a new energy rise within her. Life would continue and distance may stretch between them, but the connection they forged would always be a bright spot, a shared moment of kindness that rippled out into their lives. And so, as she turned towards the security line, her heart a little lighter despite the ache of goodbye, she knew their journey was just beginning. An unexpected friendship born out of chaos, their lives intertwined in ways that would continue to inspire and support each other. In a world so often bogged down by routine, sometimes all it takes is one small act of kindness, helping hand, an unexpected hug, or even a signed check to remind us that connection can change everything. She was dragging 2 heavy suitcases through the busy airport corridor when it happened. One wheel got caught on a crack in the floor, and before she knew it, the bag tipped over. Everything went flying, clothes and toiletries scattering around like confetti. Annabelle stood there, her heart racing, a wave of embarrassment washing over her. Around her, people hurried by, lost in their own worlds, but all she could focus on was the chaos of her luggage. Just then, a tall man stepped over, a hint of concern etched across his face as he crouched down to help. "Hey, let me give you a hand with that," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring. He was wearing a blue shirt that matched the sky outside, and his brown hair had a hint of tousle as if he had just come out of a dream. She exclaimed, relief flooding through her. As he picked up her things, she couldn't help but notice how effortlessly strong he seemed. "I've been there." "Trust me, this airport can feel like a maze sometimes," he said with a warm grin. "Annabelle," she replied, her heart easing a little with the exchange. It was just a simple moment, but something about his presence felt grounding. He was charming and kind, and in her frantic rush, it felt like a lifeline. Together, they gathered her scattered belongings and stuffed them back into the bags. Once everything was packed, they moved toward the check-in counter, weaving through the streams of travelers clutching their boarding passes and coffee cups. Jack asked as they walked, "I'm off to New York to visit my sister," Annabelle said, the excitement creeping into her voice. "Family is important," he said, nodding knowingly. "Just hanging out, exploring the city." "You know the classic sister stuff," she replied, warmth blossoming in her chest. For the first time that day, she felt more than just the pressure of travel. She felt anticipation for the time she was about to spend with her sister. Jack helped her check in, and as he handed her the boarding pass, the attendant warned her that the security line was long. "You might want to hurry," she said with a glance at the clock. Annabelle called back, and she turned to Jack. "I've got to run. Not a problem at all." "Just remember, it's always okay to ask for help," he said, his eyes glinting with understanding. She nodded, grateful for his kindness. "No need, just doing my part," he replied, and with a final wave, he disappeared into the crowd. As she rushed toward the security line, a familiar warmth washed over her. It had been a hectic day, but their brief connection clung to her. She shuffled her things along, breathing deeply. It was just a simple moment, yet it felt significant, a ray of sunlight breaking through an otherwise chaotic day. After a smooth flight, Annabelle arrived in New York, breathing in the city's energy. The feeling of the dense, bustling streets wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. Her sister was waiting at the arrival gate, and when they embraced, it felt like coming home. They laughed and talked like no time had passed, diving into stories about their lives. But amidst all the joy, thoughts of Jack lingered in the corners of her mind. What was it about him that felt so different? There was an openness in their encounter, a connection that was rare to find. As days turned into delightful chaos of sisterly bonding, laughter, long conversations, and nighttime adventures, the fleeting moment at the airport faded into pleasant memory. Yet she couldn't shake off the impact Jack had made on her, how a stranger's kindness had cradled her in a moment of need. When it came time to leave, Annabelle returned to Atlanta with a heart full of warmth and memories. The familiar hum of the airport greeted her again, but this time she felt lighter. She had grown closer to her sister, and the city had sparked something in her, an awareness of life's fleeting moments. Yet, as she settled back into her routine, the inkling of Jack wouldn't leave her. She found her thoughts drifting back to that brief encounter, the ease of their conversation, his sincerity. Was it odd to feel a connection with someone she had only met for a moment? A week later, while at work, Annabelle made a spontaneous decision. With a flutter of excitement and a dash of trepidation, she opened her messaging app and typed Jack's number. It felt ridiculous, but she hit send before she could let fear creep in. "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thanks again for your help." The clock ticked, each second stretching into eternity. She kept glancing at her phone, hoping for a response. Moments turned into an hour, and just as she began to wonder if she had made a mistake, a notification popped up. "Hi Annabelle, great to hear from you." A rush of joy surged through her. They exchanged messages, chatting easily about everything, the trip, their lives, and the little things that shaped their days. Days turned into weeks, and what began as a chance meeting flared into an ongoing conversation. Jack became a part of her routine, and with every exchange they grew closer. It felt refreshing and exhilarating, as if they were weaving a tapestry of shared experiences, one conversation at a time. One night, as they FaceTimed over cups of coffee, Jack leaned into the screen, a playful smile on his face. "So, what's next for you?" "I'm thinking about pursuing my art more seriously, maybe take a leap into the unknown," she replied with a flutter of hope. He exclaimed, his enthusiasm contagious. "Life's too short to play it safe." An appreciative warmth spread through her at his support. Their conversations felt rich and genuine. He offered insights that resonated deep within her, and she found herself letting down the walls she had built over the years. But just as the excitement blossomed, shadows flickered on the horizon. Her heart raced, a mix of apprehension and anticipation swirling within her. She quickly typed back, the news washed over her, its weight crashing down. "Wow, that's incredible." Annabelle felt a wellspring of emotions threatening to overflow. Their connection was so deep, yet here they were, standing on the brink of separation. She wanted to support him, but the idea of losing him sparked a nagging anxiety. She typed, hope battling against doubt. "I don't want that, I want to keep this alive," he assured her. "Let's make a plan, we can visit, call, and update each other." His words soothed her fears, offering a glimmer of hope amid uncertainty. Hold on to what you can. As they spoke, the future lay wide open before them, a wild and uncertain path that could still be walked together. As his departure loomed closer, they continued to talk late into the night. The tension in the air morphed into something bittersweet as they made plans for Jack's last few days in town. She wanted to make the most of it, wrapping their time together in laughter, inside jokes, and cherished memories. On Jack's final night in town, they sat in a cozy cafe, the warmth of laughter surrounding them. They shared secrets and dreams under the dim lights, both reluctant to let the night slip away. The air was thick with unspoken words and emotions hanging like a heavy curtain. "I'm really going to miss you," Annabelle admitted, her voice softening. "Me too," Jack replied, sincerity filling his gaze, "but I won't forget this." As they walked outside, the city lights twinkled like stars above them. They stopped at a corner, both feeling the weight of the moment. Jack pulled something from his pocket, a small envelope, and handed it to her. She asked, surprised. "It's a little something for you," he said, his voice steady. "I want you to remember our conversations, our dreams." She opened the envelope to find a check inside, more than she expected, but not the money that mattered. It was a reminder, a shared promise of support when distance tried to pull them apart. She started, touched, "I know, but you deserve to chase your dreams without hesitation." In that moment, the world around them faded. Annabelle realized this farewell wasn't as simple as goodbye. It was the closing of a chapter and the beginning of a blank page, one filled with promise and uncertainty. With emotions coursing through her, she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a hug that felt both familiar and charged with potential. "Thank you for everything." As they broke apart, their eyes locked, lingering with emotion, with unspoken words, dreams hanging in the balance between them. Jack leaned forward, his forehead almost touching hers. "This isn't the end." She nodded, feeling the promise of their friendship wrapping around her like a warm embrace, even as the world shifted beneath them. "You're right." With one last shared smile, they turned and walked in opposite directions, profound possibility lighting the air between them. Annabelle clutched the envelope, her heart a mix of sadness and hope. The stranger who had helped her with her luggage had become so much more than that. He had helped her view life differently, one where opportunity, connection, and support flourished against the odds. In the weeks that followed, Annabelle poured herself into her art. Each brushstroke felt like a memory resurrected, a moment shared through vibrant colors and expressions. She kept Jack's check tucked safely away as a reminder of the journey they had shared. Every so often, she received a message from him, updates about his new life, the challenges he faced, and the wonders he discovered. And every time her heart soared at their shared experiences, their friendship growing despite the distance. In the end, their stories intertwined like threads in a beautifully woven tapestry, each one adding depth and purpose. Though separated by miles, they found ways to bridge the gap through calls and shared dreams. Their connection remained unbroken. Life pushed on with its ebbs and flows, hardships and joys, but Annabelle learned that it's often in the smallest acts, the random encounters, where the most profound changes begin. Jack showed her the beauty of asking for help, the warmth of friendship, and the courage to chase dreams, even from afar. And so she found herself painting a life vibrant and full of possibilities, a canvas interspersed with memories of an unexpected friendship born in the chaos of an airport of friendship that changed everything. It was a bustling afternoon at the airport, and the din of travelers filled the air with a chaotic energy. Annabelle stood near the check-in counter, her arms aching from lugging 2 oversized bags. She was sweating under the fluorescent lights, her heart racing as she glanced at the clock ticking down the minutes to her flight. Just another day in a life that felt too rushed. As she adjusted her grip on the bags, one of them tipped over, spilling clothes and magazines onto the floor like a colorful explosion. Frustration turned to panic as she scrambled to gather her belongings, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment in front of the swarm of hurried travelers. That's when she caught sight of him, tall and unassuming, a stranger weaving through the crowd as if he navigated an invisible path. He stepped into her line of sight, his expression a mix of concern and amusement. "Looks like you could use some help with that," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring. Annabelle looked up, caught off guard by the warmth in his eyes. "Oh yes, please, I'm running late and I just can't seem to." "Don't worry," he said, interrupting her. He bent down, swiftly scooping up her scattered clothes. Annabelle watched as he collected her things with an ease that made her feel slightly better about the whole situation. With a nod of gratitude, she followed him toward the check-in counter. "I'm Jack," he said as they walked. "Annabelle," she replied, feeling the tension in her shoulders start to ease. "I'm heading to my sister's place in New York. Family time is precious," he said with a smile, affirming the connection between them with his genuine care. "Just some quality sister time," she said, wondering how a casual conversation about family felt so comforting amid the chaos of the airport. As they reached the check-in counter, Jack handed over her bag like it was nothing. The attendant looked at her watch, concern lining her face. "You need to hurry through security," she warned. "Thanks, I really appreciate your help," Annabelle said to Jack, feeling a surge of gratitude. "Just paying it forward," he replied, his eyes sparkling with kindness. They shared a moment of connection before she dashed towards security, her heart lighter than it had been just moments before. Hours later, after a smooth flight, Annabelle landed in New York, already lost in the excitement of the reunion with her sister. They embraced tightly, and she finally felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. It was a spectacular night, filled with late dinners and laughter echoing in the apartment they shared. Yet even as Annabelle immersed herself in the joy of family, thoughts of Jack lingered. Who was he? How had he stepped in just at the right moment? Each time she pulled out her phone, she considered what it would be like to reach out to him again, but hesitation crept in. What if he didn't remember her, or worse, didn't care? When she returned to Atlanta a week later, life fell back into its usual groove. Work consumed her days, and soon the memory of Jack faded into the background noise of her routine. Until one day, as she was packing her bag for a weekend outing with friends, she stumbled across the old receipt with her boarding pass on the back, the number she had scribbled for him during their encounter. With a surge of impulsiveness, she decided to text him. Her fingers hovered over the screen, anxiety bubbling up inside her. "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thank you for your help." She hit send and waited, her heart pounding as she feared the worst silence, but it wasn't long before a reply pinged on her phone. "Great to hear from you." And just like that, their conversations reignited with a warmth that surprised her. They exchanged messages daily, diving into their lives, his work, her art ambitions, and all the little things in between. The connection felt deepening, something she hadn't expected to find after a simple act of kindness. Weeks turned into months, and every text brought with it a sense of comfort and excitement. But just as things began to flourish, a different kind of news arrived from Jack. He texted one evening. Annabelle felt her heart drop at the words. Their sweet conversations hung in the air, charged with uncertainty. Annabelle wanted to cheer him on, excited for his opportunity, while grappling with the fear of being left behind. She had grown so close to him, and the thought of losing that connection felt unbearable. She sent back, unsure how to mask the swell of anxiety rising in her chest. He replied with confidence, "I want to keep this alive." As their discussions unfolded, Annabelle learned to embrace the upcoming change. She would support him, no matter the distance. The world spun on, bringing surprises, challenges, and moments that could be shared despite the miles between them. Jack's departure day arrived quickly, and Annabelle wanted to make it count. They met for coffee, laughter spilling from their lips like honey as they soaked in their final moments together. But somewhere beneath the surface, sadness festered, a bittersweet ache tugging at her heart. "I'll miss you," she finally admitted, emotions rising within her like a wave. "Me too, but this isn't the end. It's just a new chapter for both of us," he replied, sincerity pouring from his words like sunlight. In that instant, it wasn't just about saying goodbye. It felt like the universe was shifting beneath them, opening doors at the same time as it closed others. They both had dreams to chase, and while their paths were diverging, the essence of their connection would remain. As Jack prepared to leave, he handed her an envelope. Confused, she shook her head. "A little something to remember our time together," he said, the sincerity in his eyes making her heart swell. She opened the envelope hesitantly, revealing a check tucked inside. Annabelle felt tears pricking her eyes, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. He smiled gently, reaching for her hand. "It's not about the money. It's about encouraging you to follow your dreams, no matter where life takes us." As they stood there, she realized that this token was more than just a farewell. It was a reminder to take chances, embrace the unknown, and keep kindness alive in her heart, no matter where they were. They shared one last embrace, one that felt fuller, heavier with unspoken gratitude and the promise of a bond that wouldn't fade away. Standing there, enveloped in warmth, it felt like the world around them fell silent, leaving just the two of them in that golden memory. Days turned into weeks, and life pressed on with its chaos. Annabelle found herself missing Jack more than she anticipated. Yet instead of dwelling on the missing piece, she poured her energy into her art. Every brushstroke felt like a communication, with him transferring their shared moments into her work, layering colors and emotions drawn from memory. Jack's new life in Lowe's Angels unfolded before her in pictures and text messages, each one flickering like a snapshot of a dream. And despite the distance, Annabelle couldn't shake the feeling that they were both evolving, growing in their own ways. She celebrated his achievements, letting go of the fear of losing him and instead rooting for him from afar. And then one evening, as she was working late in the studio, her phone buzzed. A message from Jack popped up. "Hey, I have something for you." Intrigued, her heart raced. She replied eagerly, "Of course." He provided details, and they agreed to meet at a cafe halfway between their cities. The excitement bubbled within her, and as the day approached, Annabelle felt as if butterflies had taken residence in her stomach. When the day finally arrived, Annabelle arrived early, waiting with anticipation. 1,000 thoughts swirled in her mind. Would they still connect? Would it be awkward after all this time? She hadn't seen him in so long, and yet something in her heart told her everything would be just fine. Jack arrived, and the moment their eyes met, felt like nothing had changed at all. They easily slipped into conversation, laughter dancing through the air as they shared stories of their respective cities, his Hollywood moments and her quiet studio life. Every word felt like glue, binding them closer together, stitching together weeks spent apart. As they chatted, Jack pulled out a small item from his bag, a silver necklace with a simple pendant. "I saw this and thought of you." Annabelle's breath caught in her throat as she took the necklace from him, the weight of his thoughtfulness settling in. "It's beautiful, you've inspired me too," he admitted, looking at her with earnest gaze. "Your courage to pursue your dreams motivates me every day." As she fastened the necklace around her neck, a rush of tears pricked her eyes, not tears of sadness, but of understanding. Life had thrown them into different directions, but it hadn't diminished the bond they had forged through unexpected circumstances. Every moment they had shared, every act of kindness exchanged, had woven them together in ways both powerful and unbreakable. They finished their coffees, a sense of peace surrounding them. And when it was time to say goodbye again, a sense of empowerment washed over Annabelle. She knew life would continue pushing and pulling, but with courage, everything was possible. As she walked home that day, wearing the delicate necklace and feeling light as air, she could almost hear Jack's voice encouraging her to embrace the unknown. It was his parting gift, one that would guide her as she chased her dreams. In the months that followed, Annabelle found herself thriving in her art, going places she never thought possible. She poured her heart onto the canvas, and with every piece, she felt like she was painting their story together, yet apart. And as for Jack, he continued to reach out, their friendship weaving effortlessly through time and distance. The simple act that started with a helping hand and a signed check became a beautiful friendship rooted in kindness, courage, and the shared promise of life's unpredictable journey. They were constantly learning from one another, reminding each other to take risks and follow dreams. Connection thrived despite the miles, an unyielding testament to the power of empathy, proving that sometimes a moment of help in the chaos could lead to something beautiful. Life went on, vibrant and full of possibilities, and Annabelle embraced each day with a heart swelling with gratitude. In a world filled with uncertainty, the love of friendship remained a constant, shining beacon guiding her toward the future, always encouraging her to press on, dream big, and never forget the power of human connection. The airport was a maze of noise and movement, swarming with travelers in a hurry. Annabelle stood there, panting slightly as she struggled with two enormous suitcases that seemed to have a mind of their own. The wheels squeaked in protest, catching on every bump and crack in the floor beneath her. Her heart raced as she glanced up at the digital clock, a reminder that her flight was departing in less than an hour. She muttered under her breath, wishing she had learned to travel light. Every minute felt like an hour as she navigated through crowds, dodging people and trying not to trip. In her flustered state, one of the bags tilted dangerously, and with a swift movement, it toppled over. Clothes and cosmetics launched from the suitcase, scattering across the terminal floor like fallen leaves. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassment washing over her as curious eyes flicked in her direction. "Let me help you with that," a voice called out amid the chaos. Annabelle looked up, squinting against the glare of the overhead lights, and saw him. A tall man with tousled hair and an easy smile stepped forward, effortlessly bending down to recover her belongings. There was something disarming about him, an air of confidence that somehow calmed her racing heart. "Thank you, I can't believe this is happening," she stammered, kneeling beside him to gather her things. "No worries, airports can be chaotic, and it looks like they've got you in their sights," he replied with a grin. "Annabelle," she said, still flustered but feeling the warmth of his kindness. The way he interacted with her made the frantic atmosphere feel a little less overwhelming. With each item he handed back, she felt her stress ease, even if just a little. They straightened up together, and as she hefted her bags, she noticed how effortlessly Jack handled the weight of one of her suitcases. "You must work out or something," she joked. "Just a bit," he laughed. They moved toward the check-in counter, weaving through throngs of traveling families and business people lost in their screens. He asked, looking genuinely interested. "I'm visiting my sister. It's been way too long since we've seen each other. She's my best friend," Annabelle replied, her voice brightening at the mention of her sister. "Family time is important," Jack nodded, and their conversation flowed effortlessly as they reached the counter. He placed her bag on the scale with a casual grace that made it look easy. The attendant punched in her details and glanced up, furrowing her brow slightly. "Looks like you need to move quickly through security," Annabelle exclaimed, suddenly clocking how little time she had left. She turned to Jack, feeling that familiar rush of gratitude. "I owe you one. Just doing my part," he said, flashing her that charming smile again. With a quick wave, she dashed towards security, feeling lighter somehow, even as the pressure mounted. The flight was a blur, and soon Annabelle found herself landing in the bright lights of New York. The thrill of reuniting with her sister filled her with joy. They embraced like no time had passed at all, whisking into a whirlwind of laughter and shared stories as they explored the city that never sleeps. This weekend was everything she had hoped for and more. But as the days flew by, nestled among her joyous moments was a small pang of curiosity that nudged at her thoughts. Jack, who was he really? Did he remember her? They had shared such a brief but impactful moment. Returning home to Atlanta, reality settled back into the familiar rhythm of life. But with the routine came a heaviness, and she often found herself thinking of that blurry, busy moment in the airport. Annabelle found herself scrolling through old photos one evening, a small smile tugging at her lips as she remembered him helping her. On a whim, she pulled out her phone, opening a new message. With a shaky finger, she typed, "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. I just wanted to say thank you for your help." Breathless anticipation gripped her as she pressed send. What would he say? Would he remember her at all? She watched the screen. The pulsating dots of typing felt like an eternity. A ping. Her heart raced as he replied, "Wow, great to hear from you." They began exchanging messages, each word building a bridge that spanned the distance between two lives. Their conversations ebbed and flowed, filled with laughter, shared hopes, and dreams. Annabelle found herself looking forward to every ping of her phone. With each passing week, their connection deepened. Jack shared tales of his freelance writing adventures, while she updated him on her artistic endeavors. Sometimes the conversations dripped with chemistry, something unmistakable lurking beneath the surface. Then one evening, the tide turned unexpectedly. "I have something important to share," Jack texted, sending a flutter of nerves racing through her. She typed back, anxiety prickling her fingertips. "I got a job offer in Los Angeles. I think I'm going to take it," he replied, the words sinking into her like a stone. Her mind raced. "That's amazing for you, that's so far." "I don't want this to change things between us," he reassured her through the screen. As much as she wanted to agree, insecurities bubbled beneath the surface. His presence had already become a welcome constant in her life. Could they really keep that connection alive over miles? "We can figure something out," Annabelle replied, her heart heavy. But a part of her felt that life had a way of testing bonds, stretching them to their limits. Jack moved to California, and their conversations transformed. They adapted, finding new rhythms that kept the friendship alive. They video called late into the night, laughing and sharing their days despite the time zone difference. But with each call, Annabelle couldn't shake the feeling that distance was changing them, and she feared what that might mean. Then came the day when Jack texted to say he was in Atlanta for a brief visit. He asked, his excitement palpable even through the screen. Her heart raced. Absolutely. When the day finally arrived, Annabelle couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions as she arrived at the cafe. It felt surreal, like stepping into a moment suspended in time. Would it still be the same? Would they still connect? Jack walked in, and the moment their eyes locked, everything around them faded away. The smile on his face was bright and infectious. He exclaimed, crossing the distance between them. They hugged warmly, igniting a spark of familiarity even after time apart. She said genuinely, taking in his excitement for life that felt so infectious. "Thanks, you too," he admitted as they found a cozy corner in the cafe. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, as if no time had passed. She saw in him the same warmth and kindness, and every laugh shared chipped away at the distance that had formed between them. But as the sun began to set, the realization that their time together was limited loomed over them. He suggested, pulling out his phone. They posed together, grinning widely, two friends brought back together, laughing at life and time spent apart. As they spoke, Jack reached into his bag, producing an envelope and sliding it across the table toward her. Curious, Annabelle raised an eyebrow. "Open it. Consider it a little token," he urged. As she opened the envelope, her breath caught. Inside was a check, more than she had expected, but it wasn't the amount that mattered. It was the note attached, "For chasing your dreams." Tears pricked at her eyes. "Jack, this is too much. I genuinely believe in you," he said earnestly. Emotions surged, and Annabelle felt a rush of gratitude swirl within her. This simple act of kindness, a gesture of faith, encapsulated everything they had shared thus far, a connection that felt deeper than distance and time. "Thank you," she whispered, the words heavy with emotion. As the evening wore on, they exchanged hopes and dreams, promises lingering in the air like the last rays of sunlight. Time slipped through their fingers, but they grasped onto the moments they had left, cherishing them like precious gems. As they said goodbye, pulling each other into a tight hug, a sense of understanding washed over them. They both felt that life would continue to weave its tapestry, threading their lives together while also pulling them along their separate paths. Connections could be tested, but they wouldn't break easily. Keep that check as a reminder, Jack said, his voice low and clear. The moment hung within the air, imbued with the sweetness of shared memories and the unknown ahead. Annabelle smiled through her tears, lifting her chin. As she walked away from the cafe, she felt that beautiful piece of paper tucked into her pocket, a reminder of kindness, friendship, and the strength that comes from believing in oneself. The weeks turned to months, and Annabelle thrived in her art. She poured her heart and soul into each piece, expressing the beauty of connection and the journeys within. And every time she thought of Jack, she felt empowered. He had sparked a fire within her that wouldn't dim. Jack flourished in his new life, sharing stories of adventures in Lowe's Angels, yet they still remained tethered to one another through their calls and messages. It was a friendship built on kindness, trust, and hope, a bond that shone brightly against the backdrop of life's uncertainties. Distance was merely a hurdle, one they learned to navigate with grace. Each moment shared across the miles only strengthened their bond, proof that what began with a helping hand at an airport had transformed into something truly special. Annabelle knew that life could be unpredictable and that connections often defied logic. But with Jack in her corner, she felt braver than ever, ready to chase her dreams with unwavering faith. And in the end, that's what life is about, those serendipitous moments of kindness, the small acts that create lasting connections, and the courage to embrace whatever comes next. In this vast world filled with chaos and noise, the threads of their friendship remained intricately woven together, forever changed, forever grateful. The chaos of the airport was palpable. Annabelle stood amidst the throng of travelers, her heart racing as she wrestled with two heavy suitcases that felt as if they were filled with rocks. Each step was a battle against the thrumming crowd that swirled around her like rushing water. She had a mere 50 minutes before her flight to New York took off, and every second slipped away like sand through her fingers. Suddenly, one of the wheels on her suitcase snagged on an uneven patch of flooring. With a heavy thud, the suitcase tipped over, sending clothes tumbling out like a burst piñata. Panic shot through her as she witnessed the chaos. She exclaimed, an embarrassing heat creeping up her neck as travelers nearby stopped to glance her way. Just then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a tall man approaching. He moved with a grace that seemed to cut through the chaos surrounding him. He asked, crouching down without waiting for an answer. His calm demeanor was a stark contrast to Annabelle's frantic energy. She blurted out, relief flooding her as he began picking up her scattered belongings with an air of ease that made her feel a little more at ease too. "Thank you so much. No problem at all," he smiled, his kind eyes sparkling with warmth. "Annabelle," she replied, accepting his help as if she'd just been handed a lifeline. With his assistance, they gathered her things quickly. Jack had an effortless way about him, making it seem like rescuing her from her luggage disaster was the most normal thing in the world. Together, they made their way toward the check-in counter, weaving through the bustling crowd of families, business people, and solo travelers, each with their own stories and destinations. Jack asked, a genuine interest in his voice. "I'm visiting my sister in New York," Annabelle shared, feeling the excitement of the trip bursting forth like fireworks. "We haven't seen each other in ages." "Family is everything," Jack nodded, his expression shifting to one of understanding as they reached the check-in counter. He took her suitcase, lifting it easily onto the scale. The attendant typed furiously, glancing up at Annabelle. Annabelle replied, panic rising once more. She turned to Jack, feeling a mix of gratitude and urgency. "Just doing my part," he said, offering her a reassuring smile. Annabelle dashed toward the security line, a small smile still tugging at her lips from their fleeting encounter. She couldn't shake the feeling that this random act of kindness had shifted something in her, illuminating the chaotic day. After a smooth flight, she landed in the bustling heart of New York. The energy thrummed in the air, and she felt her worries fade away as her sister swept her into a warm embrace. Their days together were a whirlwind of laughter, late-night talks, and exploration of the city moments that felt golden and timeless. Yet even amid the joy, thoughts of Jack flickered in the back of her mind. Who was he? Why did he feel different from anyone she had met before? With every photo she took that weekend, his kindness lingered like an unwelcome ghost, sparking something important within her. Returning to Atlanta, the busy reality sunk in again. Annabelle settled back into her routine, but thoughts of Jack stubbornly hovered at the edges of her mind. One evening, she rummaged through her purse and found the boarding pass where she had hastily jotted down his phone number. With a flutter of excitement, she decided to text him. Nervousness prickled her skin. Would he remember her? Would he even care? Heart racing, she typed, "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thank you for your help." After hitting send, she fought back the nervousness coursing through her. What if he didn't respond? What if she had just made a fool of herself? Seconds felt like hours as she waited, anticipation clawing at her. Ding, a notification chirped and her heart soared. "Hey Annabelle, great to hear from you." Their conversation blossomed and flowed naturally as days turned into weeks. They exchanged messages frequently, sharing snippets of their lives, hopes, and dreams, each text drawing them closer together. There was something effortless about their connection, a rhythm that felt familiar and comforting. As the weeks rolled on, Annabelle found herself wishing she could meet Jack again. Texting felt wonderful, but nothing could compare to the warmth she felt when they were together, even for those few moments. One evening, Jack sent a text that changed everything. "I have news," he typed, his message brimming with an unusual tension. She replied, curiosity laced with apprehension. He wrote back. The words hit her like a punch to the gut, and a wave of anxiety washed over her. "That's amazing for you, but that's so far away," she typed back, a familiar fear gnawing at her. "I know," Jack replied. Could they really keep things going across the distance? Each message from Jack felt like a warm light in her life, and the thought of losing him sent a jolt of panic through her. She sent, vulnerability dripping from her fingertips. "We won't forget," he promised. "Let's figure it out." And so, she decided to embrace the change. Jack moved to California, and they both adjusted to schedules and time zones. Their conversations adapted. They made late-night calls and sent messages filled with shared dreams and laughter, keeping the flame of their connection alive despite the miles. Yet with each video call, Annabelle sensed a subtle change. The distance began to stretch like elastic, and she couldn't help but worry if they would still have the same chemistry. Her heart leaped at the idea of seeing him again. "Are you serious?" When the day arrived, Annabelle found herself pacing nervously at the cafe they had chosen to meet. Would it still feel the same? Would they connect like before? As she stood at the entrance, a flood of memories washed over her, and her heart raced like it had that day at the airport. Then she saw him. Jack walked in, and just like that, everything else faded into the background. When they locked eyes, it was like reuniting with a long-lost friend. He exclaimed, crossing the distance with arms wide open. They embraced tightly, and in that moment, everything felt right in the world again. She said, her voice rich with emotion. He replied, settling into that space between excitement and comfort, as if no time had passed at all. Over coffee, the conversation flowed effortlessly, laughter spilling over cups like coffee splashes, her art pursuits and all the details that wove their lives together. To her surprise, the connection felt even stronger now, warmer than she had hoped for. It wasn't long before Jack reached into his bag, pulling out a small envelope. "I got you something," he said, a playful glint in his eyes. Annabelle asked, intrigued. "Open it," Jack urged, his excitement palpable. As she tore open the envelope, her gaze fell on a check inside, not just any check, but a generous amount that caught her breath. She gasped, taken aback. "It's not just about that," he replied, leaning closer. "It's a reminder to invest in yourself." With tears threatening to spill, Annabelle looked at him. The weight of his generosity enveloped her, mixing with the warmth of their connection. "You don't have to say anything, just remember that I'm with you, rooting for you," he said, sincerity radiating from his eyes. They continued their conversation, sharing hopes and dreams, the past and present intertwining beautifully. The vibe was electric, and for the first time in a while, Annabelle felt truly seen, understood for who she was and who she wanted to become. Yet, as the time ticked away, reality loomed over them. The sun began to set outside the cafe, casting a warm glow that felt both enchanting and bittersweet. Annabelle loved every moment they spent together, but she couldn't shake the fear of what would happen when he left again. He paused, considering her words. "We'll stay connected, no matter the distance. I want to make this work," he promised. That night, as they stood outside under the soft glow of street lamps, the weight of their unspoken feelings hung thick in the air. Jack leaned in closer, his voice low and warm. "Thank you for everything." Annabelle felt her heart swell, the truth of his words wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "You've changed my life, Jack." With one last embrace, they stepped back, as if the distance between them had suddenly been magnified. But in that space, they both understood. Their connection was now rooted firmly in both their hearts and minds. Days passed after Jack left, and Annabelle found herself diving into her art, pouring every ounce of emotion into each stroke of her brush. The check he had given her was tucked away safely, a constant reminder of his faith in her. Through it all, they communicated across the miles, keeping their bond alive. Jack sent updates of his life in California, and Annabelle shared her artistic journey, capturing their connection in colors and canvases. But through it all, a thin thread of longing lingered. Annabelle reflected on how their initial encounter had sparked something extraordinary, yet she couldn't shake the fear of losing it all over time, losing him. Weeks turned into months, and one evening, as she was organizing her studio, a sudden thought struck her. Why not take a leap of faith and visit Jack? The idea flooded her with hope. So with determination brewing inside her, she bought a ticket to Los Angeles, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. When the day finally came, she boarded the plane, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It felt surreal as she thought of all the moments that had led her here. She was ready to embrace the unknown. As she stepped off the plane, the warmth of California enveloped her. The airport buzzed, vibrant and alive, and her heart thumped with anticipation. Jack had agreed to meet her at the airport, and as she approached the arrival gate, she felt a rush of emotions. Then she saw him. Jack stood there, a wide grin breaking across his face as their eyes met. He exclaimed, arms outstretched, and in an instant they were wrapped in an embrace that felt deep and familiar. She laughed, feeling warmth flood through her. "I'm so glad you're here," Jack replied, pulling back slightly to look into her eyes. They spent the next few days exploring Lowe's Angels together, soaking up the sun and savoring every moment. From sandy beaches to artsy neighborhoods, each adventure deepened their connection, and the bond that had formed in the chaos of the airport now flourished in the warmth of their shared laughter. And on their last night together, as they strolled along the shoreline, waves crashing gently against their feet, Jack turned to her, his expression serious yet soft. "I'm so grateful for you." Annabelle felt a rush of feelings. This felt like home. As they walked, the moonlight illuminated the path ahead, casting a silhouette of two souls intertwined on this beautiful adventure. They strolled in silence for a moment, and then under the starlit sky, Jack reached for her hand, entwining their fingers together. Whatever happens next, with every heartbeat, their connection felt more real, wrapped in honesty, love, and trust. Annabelle squeezed his hand, knowing that they had built something profound together through a simple act of kindness. As they stood there, tethered by dreams and aspirations, they both knew this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey shaped by fate's surprising hand, a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one helping hand to change everything. The bustling airport was alive with the sounds of announcements and the chatter of travelers. Annabelle stood near the check-in desk, her heart racing as she wrestled with not one, but two oversized suitcases that felt like they weighed a ton. The digital clock above the counter reminded her that her flight to New York would be boarding in just 30 minutes. Panic began to bubble inside her. The moment she took a step forward, one of the suitcase wheels snagged on the carpet, and in an instant the bag tipped over. Clothes flew out, cascading down like confetti. Embarrassment washed over her as curious glances from passing travelers caught her trapped in her moment of chaos. She exclaimed, scrambling to gather her things. Then, like a beacon of hope in the storm of travelers, he appeared. A tall man with tousled dark hair and a charming smile stepped forward through the crowd. He asked, his voice calm and soothing amidst the chaos surrounding her. Annabelle replied, relief spilling out of her as she watched him bend down to help. He was quick and efficient, gathering her scattered items with an ease that made it seem effortless. "I'm Jack," he said, tossing a soft smile over his shoulder as he handed her a stray pair of jeans. "Annabelle," she replied, feeling a warmth spread through her. It was just a simple introduction, yet that small connection felt electric in the air. Together, they worked to get her things back into some semblance of order. Jack lifted her suitcase as if it weighed nothing, and they moved toward the check-in counter side by side. He asked, his interest genuine. "I am. My sister is there, and it's been way too long since we've seen each other. I can't wait," she said, her excitement bubbling over, igniting the anxious feelings that had been building inside her. "Family time is important," Jack said, nodding with understanding. It was such a simple statement, yet it resonated with her in that moment. They reached the counter, and he placed her suitcase on the scale like it was part of a delicate dance. The attendant tapped her computer keys and then glanced up with a frown. "You really should hurry through security," Annabelle said, her voice laced with gratitude. She turned to Jack, feeling a rush of appreciation. "I owe you one, just doing my part," he said with a grin. "You'll be fine." With that final push of encouragement, she hurried off towards security, adrenaline coursing through her. As she navigated through the maze of people, she felt lighter, not just from the weight of the luggage, but from the kindness of a random stranger. Hours later, she stepped off the plane in New York, the vibrant energy of the city engulfing her. She was finally free from the confines of her chaotic day. The moment she saw her sister, the world melted away. They embraced tightly, laughter bubbling between them as they dove into plans, adventures, and everything they had missed during their time apart. The days flew by, filled with deep conversations, late-night snacks, and city lights twinkling like stars. Yet amidst all the joy lay a flicker of curiosity that refused to dim. Thoughts of Jack lingered, not as mere nostalgia, but as something deeper. Who was he beyond that moment of sheer kindness? Returning to Atlanta, the routine set in again, but every so often a memory of that day in the airport surfaced. One evening, she found herself scrolling through her phone when she stumbled across the boarding pass tucked inside her bag. On the back was the number she had written down in a moment of hopefulness. With a mixture of courage and trepidation, she typed out a message. "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thanks again for your help." She pressed send and then sat back, anxiety bubbling up again. What if he didn't remember her? What if he didn't care? The seconds ticked by like annoying little reminders until finally a reply popped up. "Hey Annabelle, good to hear from you." The relief washed over her like a warm wave, and from that moment a connection began to reignite. They exchanged messages back and forth, each response bringing laughter and light to what felt like a mundane week. It was as if they had found a secret passageway, allowing their worlds to intertwine despite the distance. As time dripped slowly into weeks, Annabelle found herself excited to read each message, eager to learn more about Jack. He was a freelance writer, chasing dreams across California, while she was an artist in her own small studio back home. They shared stories of their lives, aspirations, and fears, weaving an intricate tapestry of friendship. But a shadow lurked in the back of her mind. Would this connection withstand the test of time and distance? Annabelle thought of this often, especially when she awoke thinking about Jack or saw something that reminded her of their conversations. What they had was special, but how long could it last? One evening, Jack sent a text that sent her heart racing. Her stomach flipped, he messaged. The walls of her apartment dimmed in that moment, her heart sinking. Wow, that's amazing for you, but his response felt heavy, uncertainty layered into it, and I don't want this to change our connection. Her fingers hovered over the screen as emotions churned inside her. But how can we keep in touch? Distance can be tough, but I'm committed to making this work, he replied. Those words washed over her like a balm. They spent hours talking late into the night, reassuring one another, hoping for the best. Yet as she drifted off to sleep, doubt thrummed at the edges of her dreams, whispering fears that maybe they were destined to fade like so many fleeting connections in life. Jack moved to California, and the months that followed were a mix of triumphs and struggles in his new surroundings. She cheered him on from afar, supporting him through texts and calls, while he breathed life into her artistic pursuits with his encouragement. They faced the distance as best they could, but Annabelle felt that something was shifting and deepening between them while they tried to bridge the miles. Afternoon, Jack texted her with excitement. I'm coming to Atlanta for a short visit. Her heart fluttered in joy. Absolutely. The day finally arrived, and Annabelle could hardly sit still in the cafe where they had chosen to meet. What would it be like to see him again? Would the chemistry still be there? When Jack finally walked in, her heart leaped. Their eyes locked across the room, and she felt electricity course through her veins. As he approached, arms wide open, she was swept up in a warm embrace. He exclaimed, stepping back to look at her. She replied, beaming, "You look great. It's a wild ride, but I'm loving it," he said, radiating enthusiasm. They settled into their seats, and the conversation effortlessly flowed as if they had never been apart. They shared stories, exchanged laughter, and opened up about their lives, dreams, and fears in a way that felt profound and reassuring. But as the sun began to set outside, casting a warm glow through the cafe windows, Annabelle felt an unexpected tugging at her heart. As much as she cherished this moment, she couldn't avoid the echoing question of their future. They were reconnecting, but what would happen when this moment faded? As their date came to a close, Jack reached into his bag, pulling out an envelope and sliding it across the table toward her with a playful smile. She protested, surprised. "Just open it," he insisted, grinning. Curiosity sparked inside her as she opened it to find a check, an unexpected amount that made her eyes widen. "Oh my gosh, it's not just about the money," he said, sincerity coloring his voice. "It's a reminder to believe in yourself." Tears prickled at her eyes, overwhelmed by the kindness of his gesture. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling an emotional swell rising within her. "Just remember that I'm always in your corner," he said, locking eyes with her, a promise embedded in his gaze. Time slipped away as they continued to talk, laughter and understanding filling the air, but the sweet sorrow of goodbye hung heavy on the horizon. As they walked outside, they stood under the warm glow of the streetlights. She asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I'll come back as often as I can," he replied, his sincerity wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Days turned into weeks after he left, and Annabelle found herself pouring her heart into her art like never before. Every brushstroke was imbued with the spirit of their connection, a reminder of the powerful impact one small moment had on her life. With Jack living so far away, she began to realize that their connection had transformed into something deeper, a bond fortified by distance, laughter, and trust. They frequently reached out across the digital divide, sharing updates and stories, but in the quiet of her studio, she sometimes still felt uncertainty creeping in. The thought made her heart race with excitement and nerves intertwined. Why not take that leap of faith? When the day arrived, she boarded her flight with a body full of butterflies and anticipation. As she landed in California, the warmth of the sun lit up her soul, and for the first time in months, hope surged through her like the tide. Arriving at the airport, every part of her felt electric. Jack had promised to meet her, and the moment she stepped through the doors, the world around her blurred until she focused on the familiar figure waiting. Jack shouted, arms wide open, and in a heartbeat, she was enveloped in warmth, feeling as if she had stepped right back to that chaotic day in the airport where fate first intervened in her life. She laughed, feeling the thrill of being together again. Their days together transformed into a whirlwind of shared adventures. They explored beaches, street art, and the vibrating life of the city. Every moment felt like a scene from a movie, rich with color, laughter, and possibility. But there was one evening that would forever remain etched in both of their hearts. As dusk painted the horizon, they found themselves walking along the beach, the waves softly caressing the shore, the air filled with salt and magic. "Jack," she said, stopping to face him, "I needed this." He turned to her, sincerity shimmering in his gaze. "I feel the same way." As they strolled side by side, the distance between them seemed not just tangible, but deeply connected, a bond forged through vulnerability, kindness, and courage. Together, they chased dreams and desires under the starlit sky. With every step, their connection deepened, and they both understood they were embarking on a shared journey, one that was filled with unknowns but anchored by trust and compassion. In that moment, amidst the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, Etta James began to croon from a nearby beach cafe, enveloping everything in a blanket of serenity. And together they stepped into the future as partners, eagerly awaiting whatever adventure came next, forever grateful for that moment in the airport that had set everything in motion. Their love story, filled with hope and possibility, had only just begun. The airport was a cacophony of sound, the clattering of wheels on tile, the hum of conversations, the urgent beeps of scanners. Annabelle stood in the middle of this whirlwind, gripping the handles of two oversized suitcases that felt heavier by the second. Her heart raced as she glanced at the clock above the check-in counter, the numbers glaring at her as they ticked down the precious minutes before her flight to Los Angeles. She murmured to herself, trying to navigate through the bustling crowd. Her mind was a flurry of thoughts, excitement to reunite with her brother after years apart, the pressure of work, the endless juggling that life had become. Just when she thought she might make it to the check-in line without incident, one of the wheels on her suitcase snagged on an uneven spot on the floor. With a heavy thud, the suitcase toppled over, clothes spilling everywhere in a chaotic confession of her travel mishaps. She gasped, panic rising within her like a tidal wave. Around her, the world continued moving, indifferent to her small crisis. She could feel the heat of embarrassment creeping up her cheeks as she started to gather her belongings. That's when she saw him. A tall man, effortlessly cool, casually approached, a warm smile lighting up his face. He moved through the chaos with the confidence of someone who had been there before. He asked, crouching down to help without hesitation. She exclaimed, relief washing over her like a cool breeze. His presence felt like a lifeline thrown into her sea of disarray. "I'm Jack," he said, tossing a glance her way as he helped gather her clothes. "Annabelle," she replied, gratefulness spilling into her voice. Together they worked quickly, and it felt almost intimate, the way he handled her things with care, as if he understood the weight of her journey. "Just in time," he quipped as they finally got her suitcase upright. The check-in counter loomed ahead, and she could now see how close she was cutting it. "You're a lifesaver," she said, her pulse calming just a bit. "Totally get that. Airports are their own version of a maze," he said, lifting her suitcase again as they headed toward the counter. "Visiting my brother," she said, her voice brightening. "It's been years since we've seen each other." "Family is crucial," Jack replied, nodding knowingly. "I'm heading to a conference for work." They reached the check-in counter, and he placed her bag on the scale with undue ease. "Just a little further," he reassured her. As the attendant processed her ticket, she couldn't help but feel a connection growing, a flicker that felt fresh and hopeful in the midst of her chaos. "Thank you again for your help," she said, suddenly wishing she could keep this moment going. "Anytime," Jack said, a genuine smile lighting up his face. Just like that, they parted ways. Annabelle rushed toward the security line, her body lighter despite the ticking clock. As she made her way through the airport, she glanced back, half expecting to see him one last time, but he was gone, lost in the swarm of travelers. Hours later, she landed in Los Angeles, her brother's excited face waiting for her at the gate. Wrapped in his arms, all her stress melted away. They filled the days with laughter, late-night talks, and visits to places that held memories of their childhood. But even as she immersed herself in the family reunion, thoughts of Jack flickered in the back of her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that their brief encounter had felt significant, something beyond the ordinary. Back in Atlanta, reality set in again. The demands of work pulled her in like a relentless tide, yet she often found her mind wandering back to that day. One evening, she rummaged through her bag and stumbled upon the slip of paper where she had hurriedly written down Jack's number. A jolt of spontaneity surged through her. Why not reach out? She typed a text hesitantly. "Hey, it's Annabelle from the airport. Just wanted to say thank you for your help." After hitting send, a skein of anxiety knotted in her stomach. What if he didn't remember? What if he had already forgotten her? The moments ticked by like melodic notes of music until her phone buzzed with a reply. "Hey Annabelle, great to hear from you." A rush of relief flooded through her. They began exchanging conversations that flowed like a river, natural, easy, filled with laughter and deep dives into their lives. Jack shared stories about his freelance gig while she filled him in on her art, each back and forth feeling richer than the last. Weeks turned into a month, and what began as a moment of kindness had blossomed into a friendship that felt unique and exponentially important. Yet as complex feelings began to form, a cloud of uncertainty lingered. Could this connection last? Then came the day that shook everything. Jack sent a message that made her pulse quicken. "I have some news," he wrote. She replied, her stomach flipping with anticipation. "And I think I'm going to take it," he typed calmly, but she could sense the weight behind the message. Her heart dropped. "Wow, that's amazing for you, but I don't want our connection to vanish," he typed urgently. Desperation tangled in her thoughts. Would they drift apart like seasons changing? The fear clawed at her, spilling doubt into the once comfortable conversations they'd shared. She replied after a long pause, "We need to be realistic." "I'll come back to visit, I'll call, I'll text," he promised. She wished she shared his confidence. That night they stayed up talking late into the night, reassuring one another. Soon after, Jack moved out to California and life turned on as Annabelle struggled with the distance. They attempted to bridge the gaps, supporting each other as best as they could, but she sensed a change in the air, an insistent reminder of the miles between them. One finely spun evening while scrolling through social media, Annabelle saw a post from Jack, a picture of him at a cafe, a radiant sunset behind him. It struck her, an ache fluttered in her chest, a realization that he was embarking on a separate journey, leaving her behind. Would he forget her? Regardless, life pressed on, and as summer rolled into fall, Annabelle poured her heart and soul into her art, inspired by memories they had created together. She felt alive and free in her expression, each brushstroke a means to weave their story through her canvas. Then the notification came, an unexpected invitation. Jack wanted to visit Atlanta for a few days. He asked, excitement bubbling through his words. "Yes, I can't wait," she responded, excitement flaring up like fire. When the day finally arrived, anticipation rippled through her like a current. Would everything feel the same? Annabelle stood at the same cafe where they had met, her heart racing again like an old song that awakened something deep inside her. The moment Jack walked in, it all melted away. The time, the distance, the uncertainty. Here he was, handsomely familiar, and her heart leapt. They collided in a warm hug, electricity coursing through them, as if they were two magnets pulled together. "Wow, I've missed this," he said, sincerity etched across his features. "Me too," she replied, her heart full, buoyed by seeing him again. They settled into easy conversation, and it felt like no time had passed at all. Every laugh echoed, every glance shared felt loaded with an unbroken connection. As the evening settled into night, she felt the weight of a question lingering in her mind. They strolled out into the crisp air, surrounded by amber streetlights. She finally asked, the words trembling at the edge of uncertainty. Jack paused, turning to face her, seriousness falling over him like a shadow. "I don't want to lose this," he admitted. In that moment, the world around them blurred. It was just the two of them, lost in a cocoon of hope and anxiety. "Neither do I," she confessed softly. Jack took a breath, grappling with the weight of her question. "Let's figure it out together," he said, determination written across his face. As the night unfolded, they shared secret aspirations, playful dreams of futures intertwined. They were buoyed in that moment, feeling as if anything was possible. But just as they began to make plans for what came next, his phone buzzed. Annabelle watched as Jack furrowed his brow, staring intently at the screen. "Hey, I need to take this," he said, voice slightly more tense. She stepped away a little, her heart thumping with curiosity. She tried to focus on her thoughts, but a leap of worry churned deep inside her. She watched as Jack stepped to the side, his back to her, engaged in a conversation that seemed to grip him wholly. As moments turned into minutes, that weight started to settle in again. Why did he look so tense? Finally, he turned back toward her, his expression changed. She could see uncertainty washing over him like a dark tide. "I have to go," he said, his voice strained. She asked, disbelief washing over her. "My boss just informed me that there's an urgent project that needs my attention," he explained, frustration etched on his features. Anger and confusion swirled within her, "But I thought we had time." "I'm sorry," Jack said, desperation lacing his voice. "They're depending on me." The weight of their unspoken words hung in the air like fog, thick and suffocating. She felt betrayal creeping in. It clashed violently with all the hope they had just shared. All she wanted was to hold on to what they had built together, a connection that felt precious and significant. She blurted out, desperation slipping from her lips. For a moment, Jack looked surprised. "It's not that simple. They need me to focus, and this isn't the way to ease you into my world," he replied, regret coloring his tone. "Fine," Annabelle snapped, a wave of hurt rushing through her. "Forget it." Her heart pounded as hurtful words spilled from her lips, and she regretted them instantly, seeing the impact on Jack's face. But the clawing pain of potential separation felt unbearable. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice quiet. He turned to walk away, leaving her standing there, feeling the ground beneath her shake as everything they had built together teetered on the brink of collapse. But deep down, she couldn't help but feel that this wasn't the end. After everything they had shared, how could it be? Annabelle took a deep breath, resolved. He stopped, turning partially, uncertainty hanging heavily over them. She felt every ounce of courage rush forward. Yet, before he could respond, a notification pinged on his phone, vibrating the moment even heavier. "I have to prioritize my career right now, Annabelle." And with that, the door swung shut behind him, leaving her in the dim light of the cafe, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. Annabelle stood there, heart racing and emotions swirling. The connection they just forged now felt frayed and fragile, as if fate was playing its hand once more. What would happen next? Was this the last she would see of him? A storm brewed within her, both turbulent and electric, as she faced the rigidity of the decisions that loomed ahead. Could she fight for this connection, or would she watch it slip away like sand through her fingers? In that moment, as the world moved on without her inside the cafe, everything changed. She knew she had a choice to make, but could it hold the power to forever alter the course of her life? She took a deep breath, her heart set on the next step, a fierce determination beginning to burn within her soul. The journey they had started was far from over, and she was ready to fight for it, no matter the cost.